Welcome back to Monty and Nick.
Hey
Hello,
guys.
hello. This is the our series called Marriage Things, where we talk about things that have to do with being married.
Because we're married.
Obviously, we have some 4C's that that we're gonna talk about today. But first, we want to give a COVID-19 update. It's currently the second week in May, and things are starting to open back up. How things going with you?
I actually get to go back to work this Friday, so I'm very excited. I miss my clients.
Okay.
I miss my clients. I miss my conversation with my clients. Yeah, I just miss being there doing hair. That's like my passion. So what about you?
Me, I'm still gonna be in the house working from home. You know,
With the kids?
I'm wearing hats because I need a haircut, and I don't want y'all to see my hair.
Well, I've been cutting his hair and I've been doing a pretty good job, haven't I?
So yeah, so that's our COVID-19 update. So we want to talk about the 4C's of having a successful marriage. Those 4C's are Christ-centered, communication, commitment, and compromise. But I want to give a scripture. The scripture is Ephesians 5:25-33. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he may sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. I mean, what that means for me is I follow the belief that being married, we're a one body, one flesh. We move as one unit. I mean, if you think about a person walking, your left leg can't be going this way and your right leg is going that way, because you're not going to go anywhere. So I think it is, the same with marriage. We have to be on the same page. We have to be, moving towards operating as a unit to be successful. That's one of the things that stood out to me. What about you, Bay?
I agree with all of that.
Oh, okay. That's a didactic look from Nikki Snyder. How have we used Christ in our marriage from your perspective?
I believe we use Christ in our marriage as making sure that he's the head of our marriage and the center of our marriage, which also means to give our marriage completely to him. Although we don't 100% do that all the time, but that's the goal. That's the end goal, is to completely give our marriage.
I mean, I agree. I think that having Christ as the center of our marriage, and I think that we have to get to that point. I don't believe that it starts like instantly. It's something that we have to grow to. I believe that over time, as we go through situations, as we go through scenarios, through life, children, career changes and all that, that will, as long as we are intentional about developing our relationship with him and putting him forth and doing the things that we can do to better our relationship personally and as a couple, if that makes sense. What do you think about having like older couples, having mentor couples who are believers? What's your thoughts on that? Like having...
I actually encourage everyone to have a mentor couple, or just, an older couple that you may look up to, because they are like the example of what you may, want your marriage to be like, look like, especially if it's a Christ-centered relationship. I like to learn from others. So when it comes to marriage, that's a big one for me.
Yep, I definitely think knowing someone who has been married for 20, 25, 30, 35 years, they've been there, done that, they walk through, crazy experiences, and they have some knowledge. So if you know somebody who has a successful marriage, then it'd be great to have them as a mentor couple, because that's helped us tremendously. What do you think about, before getting married, premarital counseling?
I am a huge believer of premarital counseling. I believe that anybody who gets married, they need to go through a premarital counseling. That's where you guys can hash out things that maybe you guys don't really like about each other, or you can get tips on how to deal with each other and in a different way, outside of the norm. What about you?
Yeah, I think having 4 to 6 to 8 weeks of premarital counseling sessions to hash out who we are as individuals, and then that way I know what I'm getting myself into, and you know what you're getting yourself into, and then we could say, hey, we can talk about childhood experiences, and talk about how as your upbringing has shaped who you are as an individual, and how that can affect our marriage. And also coming to an agreement before we get married, like foundations, our principles, what our expectations are, things like that. So just, it's a bunch of different areas, from planning a family, financials, what are our career goals, right? What are our, what do we see in the future? What does retirement look like for you? You know what I mean? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you want to, So these things I think would be awesome to hash out as fiancés.
And then just kind of piggyback off of that, when you move in with somebody, although we've been living together for quite a while, we really, really, really did not start getting to know each other until after we really got married, for real. Like things, kind of started changing. I think at a certain age, for women, a lot of times we don't know who we are, so we kind of conform to, what the husband is, or vice versa. I was still trying to find myself. I was 21 when we got married, so I was still trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah, and I think even me as well, to circle back to Christ-centered, I had to find myself and really renew my mind, and step into the man that God called me to be. You know what I'm saying? And that's a straight development process. Even now, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect, but we're still working on that.
So our next topic is communication, which is something huge for married couples or any relationship. I probably am not the best communicator. I'm working on it though. One way that we learn to communicate a little bit better and more effectively is the sandwich approach, which is you will start the conversation off with a positive, and then in the middle of the sandwich is your negative, and then you end it off with another positive. So there goes your sandwich, like that. I think it cuts out us getting offended with what someone may have to say about how they feel about us. What you think?
Just to piggyback off of what you said, the sandwich approach is definitely a tool that we use, in our marriage when we have communication, or when we have issues in our marriage. We need to do it more. We might be used to just communicating our issue to our spouse, the negative part of it, right? Without talking about the positive stuff, right? Stuff like that.
So I think also with communication, we as couples have to learn to listen to our spouses so that one, we can respond properly, and we could really hear the heart of the spouse.
Yeah, definitely actively listening, not trying to overtalk the other person, and even trying to put yourself in that person's shoes, just to see their perspective. Because you might be like, the way you think of it is like, whoa, this dude is, or this woman is crazy, you know. But if you put yourself in her shoes, you could see how she came to that thought or that, you know, result. So also one of the things that I've learned being married to this woman is I have to watch like my tone.
Absolutely.
Because she's tone, like if you come, you could say, you know, you could be saying the smoothest thing, you could be saying the thing that's absolutely right, straight from Jesus. And she'd be like, how, what'd you say? You know what I'm saying? But with her, you have to, you know, with my wife, right? I've learned to, and I'm still learning to, in order for her to hear me, I have to come at her, you know, with the right tone. It might be the perfect message, but it has to be, you know, she has to receive it. It has to be.
You can't come aggressive, because then I get aggressive.
When we, you know, younger in our marriage, God revealed to me that I have to handle my wife like a rose. So like, if you think about a rose, and the rose has thorns in it. If you hold the rose the wrong way, right, you're gonna get pierced, right? But if you hold the rose the right way, you can see its beauty. You can smell the rose. So God keeps telling me, you know, that I have to handle my wife, you know, like a rose. Yeah.
Oh, well, one thing I can say too is me as his wife. It's a lot about respect. So if I come to him with an issue disrespectful, trust me, Kimani gets disrespectful back.
What? Do I get disrespectful back?
Yeah. Okay. Not does he just get disrespectful, he turns into a jerk. Okay. You don't?
Perhaps. Commitment. Commitment is the third C in the 4C's of having a good marriage. So when we talk about commitment, obviously we should be committed to each other. We should be faithful to each other. It's just me and her and me, nobody else outside our marriage. It's just us two. So that's an obvious thing. Obviously, there are people who struggle with this, you know, at the beginning, in the middle, towards the end of their marriage. Is having faithful issues, and those things should be worked out, you know, in the beginning. And then if you're having problems during your marriage, you guys should be communicating, and you should be having Christ-centered, right, to battle the challenges of a thought that could come in your mind. So I mean that's an obvious thing, but another thing, being committed to the relationship. And what I mean by that is being intentional about building our marriage. You know, dating her, giving her gifts, you know, using her love languages, right? You know, going on vacation, spending the quality time with her, and then trying to grow our relationship and not be stagnant or plateau, but just trying to improve our relationship. That's being committed to our relationship. What about you? Commitment.
I agree with everything you have said.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add that, you know, if you feel like there is a commitment issue in your relationship, like he said before, you need to talk about it. You need to be transparent about it, so that is something that can be worked out. Because most of the time it's not going to get worked out if you're not saying anything about it.
And also to add to commitment is having some accountability partners. If it's a best friend, if it's a mentor, someone that you can trust, someone, where you could say, hey, I'm struggling in this particular area. I need help. I need some advice. And then sometimes God can speak through that mentor, that person that you can confide in, that person who can hold you accountable. So I think if you're struggling, being faithful, having someone to hold you accountable is a great thing. So.
Yeah, I have plenty of people who hold me accountable. I don't have anybody around me who is a yes man. I don't want that. I don't want a yes man
or yes ma'am.
Yes man, yes ma'am. I don't want any of that around me. I don't want nobody agreeing with me, knowing that I'm, wrong. And sometimes when my friends are telling me that, I get frustrated about it, and then I'll be like, okay, Lord, I hear you. Okay, our next C in the 4C's is compromise. And compromise to me is maybe if we have a disagreement about something, that we come together and basically agree to disagree and come up with a middle ground, so that we both can kind of just move on and be happy. What does it mean to you, Kimani?
Compromise to me, I think if on the topic of compromise, we have to go back to our upbringings. I was raised in a 2-parent household, conservative. The man did stuff outside, he worked and he cut the grass and did the maintenance and all that stuff. The woman cooked, cleaned, laundry, all of that stuff, you know what I'm saying? What about you?
Well, in my household growing up, it was a single parent household, so everyone who lived in our household, we all pitched in to work together to get things done so that it can run smoothly. It wasn't my brothers, do all the manly things, and then, the girls do all the girly things. We all pitched in and helped with everything.
And I don't think it's you guys had to do what worked in your household.
Absolutely.
Right? And what you did, that was effective for your household, right? And then the same for our household, the way we grew up, that was the structure, and it worked. He, my father was efficient and sufficient at doing manly things, and my mom was sufficient and efficient doing female things. So it's just different situations. So trying to merge those two households together when you get married, for me, it was compromise, right? Because you were raised different, I was raised different. I thought it this way, you thought that way, and the careers were different. You're self-employed. Sometimes you work late, right? Sometimes you work long hours. I'm regular 9 to 5, and then so for me, in order for us to have a successful, efficient household, I had to compromise, right? I had to cook, I had to clean, I had to do laundry, you know what I'm saying? Just to make sure that the house is efficient, you know what I'm saying? Running efficiently.
You only got to cook on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, but I still got to cook. So
and most of the time, you're not even cooking; you're buying food out.
So. No, I mean, but still, that is a compromise, because you still have to think about what I'm going to buy or what I'm going to cook, right? I could say, I'm gonna just wait till my wife gets home. And you get home at 9 o'clock. If you get home at 9 o'clock on a Friday, the kids is hungry.
You better not ever do that to my kids.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, though. So I'm like, for me, and why I said I had to go back is just to explain, our upbringings, in a nutshell of how we come to where we are and the compromises that I made.
And it works for our household.
Yeah, and it works. Exactly, it works for our household. Everybody's household is different. People's upbringings are different. And that's perfectly fine. We have to make what works for us. Some people may be out there and say, the man should do all the things, the women should do all the things. It has to work for your household. What if You know, if God forbid I'm disabled and you work all the time, you know what I'm saying? That's a different dynamic, right? If I'm at home, I have to take care of the children. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and that even comes to within like duties of the household. So finances. If you're great at doing finances as a female, do your thing. If I'm great at finances, you know, if you're great at, you know, doing something, if you're efficient at doing something, then, you know, you're help me. You know what I'm saying? No? All right.
Yep.
What do you think about like situational compromises?
Situational compromises, I would say, like, we have an argument, and sometimes we both are very hard-headed, very stubborn, and sometimes we might go a couple days without speaking.
Dang.
But then, it's the truth. But then sometimes I will compromise and come to him and be like, okay, we need to have a conversation. I can't keep like walking past you and acting as if, you know, we ain't married or anything. So I think that's a situational compromise. What about you?
Situational compromises, I'll just speak in generalities, but there could be situations where you may have to compromise on something for the greater good of the family. It could be holding off on a career or holding off on a big purchase of something that you want, right? For the greater good, or just it could be timing, right? And there could be a development factor. So I got, you know, a 2-year-old, right, who needs to be tended to. I shouldn't be going back to school right now. You know what I'm saying? Probably not a good idea. You know what I mean? But those are some situational compromises. Anything else?
Well, guys, this ends our 4C's marriage tings topics for today. Christ-centered, communication, commitment, and compromise. I hope that you guys were able to receive and maybe even apply some of the things that we talked about today within your marriage or any relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Just remember, you know, strive to having Christ as the center, ultimately, of yourself and then your marriage. You know, working on communication as an individual, as a married couple, you have to keep working it. Commitment, definitely being faithful to each other, definitely being committed to the relationship, and then, you know, compromising where you see fit, compromising with what works for you guys, and that's for this whole thing. There isn't a cookie cutter. We did this like this, so you do it exactly the same way, and you'll get the exact same results, because that's not going to happen.
You have to find what works for your marriage.
Exactly. So, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. So, babe, what do we got coming up next?
Listen, guys, please subscribe, like, share, all of that good stuff, because we will have a guest couple who are very close friends of ours, and we love dearly. What else do we have?
And then also be on the lookout. We're gonna do. We've done DNA ancestry, and we're gonna do an episode. We're gonna reveal what the DNA results are. We're gonna talk about it, where we come from. If I'm true Wakanda or not. You know, that's something that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Anything else?
No.
So again, like, share, subscribe, come back and visit us. If you have any questions, leave us comments. We see some of y'all comments, and and if you are interested in some of these shirts, drop a comment or look at the email address in the description section, and then you can get a marriage ting shirt. So, anything else, babe?
I don't have anything, babe.
All right. Deuces. Let me know you're ready. Do I got some on tea?
Oh my God.
Work it. Work. No, I'm playing. We should do a harmony. It's money in it. No, I'm playing. Marriage teams. Okay, and you got your boobs all up in the screen now.
Well, how are they gonna see it? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, with the kids. Dang, my hat look like I got bashed in the head. I itch now. It's itching. No. So what does that? Looking at that scripture, what does that mean to you, babe?
Man, I was listening, but I wasn't listening because it's so long. Okay, Okay, our next topic is communication.